Welcome back to another edition of Through the Smoke, a Miami Hurricanes football and recruiting podcast here on the 24/7 Sports Network. David Lake, joined as always by Gabby Urrutia, and friend of the show, former co-host Andrew Ivins, director of scouting at 24/7 Sports, is going to join us coming off Elite 11, so we want to get his thoughts on Miami quarterback commit Israel Abrams and just this class in general, some of his thoughts. Before we dive into things, want to highlight our sponsors, of course, starting with Canes Connection. That is Miami's collective. They play a critical role in Miami being able to build out these top 10 recruiting classes. So go support those guys any way you can at canesconnection.com. Also, our guy, Nick Musarino. If you've been injured in any type of accident, slip and fall, boating, trucking, Uber, Lyft, any type of car accident, Nick Busarino is the personal injury attorney you should contact at 561-960-9870 or visit his website at flinjury.law. And then if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in South Florida real estate, you should hit up Aaron Pascal, Gabby.
Yeah, absolutely. Born and raised right here in South Florida, big time Miami Hurricanes fan. He would love to chop it up with you about the Canes. So, with all the market changes, lower mortgage rates, new opportunities are opening every single day. Aaron Pascal is the guy to reach out to. You can hit him up at 305-497-5773 or at abpascal.kw.com.
All right, let's dive into it. Andrew, welcome. Thanks for joining on again with us here at Through the Smoke.
It feels like a throwback. Feels like a throwback episode. I'm loving
Yeah,
this.
it's been a while, right? And like, look, you guys got advertisements now. Hey, I listen all the time, like when I'm running. This is how I keep up to
Good,
date. So I'm glad to be here.
good. Yeah, well, you're the founding guy of this podcast.
Founding
You're the one who
father.
who started it, really. So,
I still
um,
get emails like, "Hey, it's another
yeah,
one." I still
that's
get them.
funny. That's funny. That's funny. So, yeah, we want to touch on, Elite 11 with you. And, before we just dive into Israel Abrams, I want to get your thoughts on this quarterback class in general because, really, I feel like Elite 11 is kind of when you start to really learn and get a real feel for what the quarterback class is like nationally, how they all compare to each other, what are the intangibles like, how are they all these quarterbacks different from each other, et cetera. So this class in general, and it's different year to year, right? The talent, the depth, all that. How would you characterize this quarterback class in 2027?
I think it's down as a whole, right? Like, I don't think there is a ton of depth in this class. And I feel confident saying that not only because I think the Elite 11 had 8 regional stops, I was at 5 of them. Now, we've tried to study as many of these guys as we can around the country. So I had felt like it was kind of down. I thought there was like a lead pack of guys heading into the Elite 11 finals. And I think that kind of confirmed there is, I would say 8 to 10 individuals where you drop them in any cycle. They're going to be top 2, 4, 7 guys. You're going to think the world of them or what they could be at some point down the line. And, why I feel it's down as well, just talking with decision makers at college football programs around the country. That's what you continue to hear, even up until this past Thursday and Friday, right before the Elite 11 finals. A lot of people asking me, "Hey, is there anyone you think could make some noise?" So, just compared maybe some other years, it's down. Now that doesn't mean someone's going to emerge from that 3-star range
Hmm.
and certainly make noise on Saturdays and transfer up and all that stuff. Like, we know that's going to happen. But right now, I just think there isn't a ton of depth. So, I think if you got one of these 8 to 10 dudes, you are in very, very good shape heading into their senior seasons. And maybe there'll be some reshuffling in terms of guys flipping and the coaching carousel. That happens all the time. So I think for Miami, like, they got a guy in Israel
Hmm.
Abrams. And I thought that when he committed to them back in, what was that, early April, and then coming out of this 3-day showcase, like, I think you got to be really, really excited.
What impressed you most just about what his performance, what he showed?
Confidence, energy, all of that. And I mean, Izzy's a guy where we loved him on tape coming off his sophomore year. Like the term I always use is elastic. And it's funny, Tom Loy, who's on the recruiting team, I think it was after night one, he came up to me and he's like, I finally understand what you mean by elastic in terms of he's just this loose athlete.
Hmm.
So I think he's got an NFL caliber arm. Like that was my takeaway after seeing him at the Indianapolis Regional. I think that was in March. But what really kind of got me all in on Izzy is just how competitive he is and his mindset and his mentality. We had check-in that first Friday, and he had my favorite interview we did with the CBS Sports HQ crew. I mean, I would encourage everyone to go watch that if you haven't already. You can find it on the CBS Sports College Football YouTube channel. I think it's floating around on the Inside the U video queue there
Hmm.
on the site. But just everything he said, um, his mindset. He is cocky. I mean, certainly a confident individual, but at the same time, I think he's very respectful and he understands that, hey, he needs to continue to grow. He needs to be this voice in the locker room. So, I think the combination of him between the ears and then what he can be on the field, it was special. He had our favorite pro day on Saturday night, right? He had what we would score like seven dime tosses, like where it's near perfect out of the 20 throws, and then Sunday during that 7-on-7, I mean, he threw seven touchdowns, yeah, one interception. To me, the interception was still impressive. It was just a case where, hey, the DB beat the wide receiver. So, I mean, he is full tilt, full go. I think a lot of the Elite 11 coaches just kind of talking with them, they might not like that about him. And which funny because it's like, I think you want that. Like, you want a guy that is going to push the pace and push the tempo. And really everything we saw Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think it lined up with what we had seen from him on tape, really as a sophomore, then as a junior as well.
Yeah, Ivins, I think one of the things that stands out to Miami, right? I think with quarterbacks, everyone has a different type, right? Like I think depending who you talk to, like people value different traits, different characteristics of these quarterbacks. I think for Miami, like that alpha mentality, that the way he's wired is kind of what set him apart from some of these other quarterbacks. They explored a lot of the quarterbacks that you saw in person at the Elite 11 out west. I mean, Peter Bork was at one point in the mix. Will Mensel at one point was their favorite guy until he caught in front of Izzy, Davin Davidson, Trent Seaborn. These are all guys Keegan Krucher threw on campus last summer. It seems to me like Izzy, just based on what we've read, and seemed like that is your favorite of this group. But can you like assure Miami fans or just tell Miami fans like did they get the best guy of that crop that they ended up recruiting this cycle? Because I think it's important to from that context too.
Yeah, in terms of, I mean, and it's, he was like our co-alpha dog, but
Right.
Hmm.
I think from an off the field personality wise, like, yeah, like that alpha dog mindset and trait is there. And I think what's fun about the Elite 11 finals, having been out there a few years in a row now, kind of night one, you can tell who the other finalists view as one of the guys. Like when they throw, there's a different energy. So if you want to go back to last year, it was Keyshawn Henderson, who ended up as our number one player, signed with Houston, five-star quarterback. The year before that, it was Keelan Russell. Just like kind of when those guys were up in the drills, everyone was looking towards them to see what they would do. And I got that same vibe right away from Israel Abrams. Now, don't get me wrong, Trey Taylor, the Nebraska commit, I mean, he was awesome as well. And to take you kind of behind the scenes, like we showed up on Sunday morning and when we award that alpha dog for the 3 days, it was like, okay, we think it's either going to be Trey or it's going to be Israel Abrams. And Trey played his 7-on-7 game first and he threw seven touchdowns. And I kind of turned to our guys and I'm like, okay, it's Trey. Like, I don't think Izzy's going to be able to top this. Like, he's going to need to throw seven touchdowns. And what does he do? He goes out there and throws seven touchdowns. So I thought those guys were neck and neck. But to me, my takeaway is like, I think Israel Abrams fits like that Miami vibe, that what Mario's trying to create there in Coral Gables. And it's, I asked him after in the midway of that interview at some point, I was like, "Have you ever watched like the You documentaries?" And he's like, "No, I haven't." I'm like, "You need to like that is your homework here because I think you're even gonna be more fired up about what Miami has been in the past." So yeah, I think he's a guy that when he arrives, like there is going to be a very unique presence. Like he is outgoing. Again, he is confident, but at the same time, like I think he understands his role, and I don't think he's going to be like a locker room issue. But I could see a lot of guys, at Miami kind of rallying behind him relatively early.
To me, Andrew, like from, you know, what I expect from people like you, right, who are evaluating. To me, the best evaluations evolve, right? With, you see them at different stages and you evolve how you think about them. And I'm just curious. I mean, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but like on the 24/7 Sports profile right now, Nico Iamaleava is his comp. I'm curious, like after seeing him at Elite 11, do you still feel good about that comp? Not that I'm insinuating it's good
I
or
know.
bad. I'm just wondering, like, do you still feel like that's a good comp, or have you evolved? Maybe he's more like this guy.
Yeah, and the player comps are funny because I think a lot of people get tied up
Yeah,
into who they are, but I think physically, how they're kind of built and constructed and what they're able to do with their arm, like, those guys can go rapid with their feet. And the biggest thing is kind of like slowing it down, not realizing that their 95% is better than a lot of people's 100%. And yeah, Nico's on there. It's funny. I think Matt Zenitz on CBS Sports like wrote a Big Ten kind of spring intel piece, and I think they said in there, some NFL evaluators have Nico as a guy that could go day two and potentially
hmm
day one. So, coming out of it, I haven't changed it. But to your point, like, I think it's always a bit ridiculous if you take a guy who is coming off his junior season, you're like, hey, we're going to compare them to this first rounder. I think
yeah.
that's a little bit unfair. So, for us, like the comps, we really want to mirror them up towards the end. Like that's when we feel the most comfortable. The name that comes to me, and Izzy brought this one up, is Lamar Jackson. And I know people are going to roll their eyes, but when we were asking him, okay, like who do you study? Like who do you try to model your game after? He was quick on it. He said Lamar, and it wasn't Lamar the dual threat talent. He kept highlighting Lamar as the passer, and they are a bit similar in terms of how they are built. Israel is an athletic guy, but he wants to win from the pocket. So that's like one where I could see it. I haven't had a ton of time to like maybe kind of go through some others. So just because he brought that up as like, all right, this is the guy that
Yeah.
model myself after. I'm starting to warm up to that if that makes sense.
Last thing I got for you on Israel, and I know this is impossible for you to project, but I'm just curious, like, if you could see this scenario happening, right? So, let's say Miami started this year, Darian Mensah. He technically has 2 more years of eligibility. Let's say he performs well enough to go to the NFL draft next year and get drafted. That means Israel Abrams would join a quarterback room with Luke Nickel, Darian Coleman, Judd Anderson. Could you foresee Israel Abrams being a true freshman guy that pushes for a starting job?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And hey, can we also point out Shannon Dawson 3 years in a row? He had an Elite 11 finalist. I know that's not
hmm
end all be all, but I do think that is impressive. I think so. And, you know, there used to be a time when these five-star quarterbacks, like it was expected for them to come in and compete for that day one job. Now, I think the pandemic, everyone getting that extra year, and what the transfer portal has become has kind of recalibrated things a little bit. But with Abrams, I mean, he's 24 and 0 as a starter. You would think he's going to get another 13, 14, maybe 15 games as a senior, bearing injury or anything like that. And when I look when we go back and look, okay, who are the quarterbacks that play year one? the common tying thread is the live reps they get over the course of their prep career. And
Hmm.
you can't replicate that stuff. You can't replicate the situations. Hey, it's 3rd and 10. You got to get
Right.
11 yards. Hey, you're down 2 scores. The defense can't stop anyone. We need you to kind of rally back. So I think from a on-field resume standpoint, he's going to be right where you want him to be. And, just going back to what we saw Saturday and Sunday, I mean, I would put it up there since the pandemic. Like his pro day was probably the most exciting for me. That
Hmm.
7-on-7 game was one of the most exciting. I mean, the 7 touchdown passes, I think that would have tied Camario Taylor, who played as a true freshman at Mississippi State, and Matt Zollers, who played as a true freshman at Missouri. And I'm not saying like that's the end all be all, but I look at Faison Brandon, who's potentially going to be QB1 at Tennessee. Like, I think you get a little bit more excited right now about Israel Abrams and just his confidence in what he's able to do. So, yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. And I think it sets up well for Miami. I mean, you would have Luke Nickel after, what is that, 2, 3 years in there with
Hmm.
Shannon Dawson. He's a guy that played a ton in Georgia's highest classification. You have Darion Coleman, quick release, maybe not the biggest guy, but he too has a ton of just confidence in his ability. So, I think it sets up well for Miami. And with Izzy, I think just really the sky is the limit with him. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, he's going to be could be Miami's highest ranked quarterback signee since like Kyle Wright. And
All
Yes.
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a
Yeah,
while.
that's where I was going to go with Ivins. I mean, right now, Izzy's number 14 player in the country, number 2 quarterback. Just again, maybe putting you on the spot a little bit, but what are the odds that Israel Abrams finishes the cycle with 5 stars next to his name?
Yeah, I mean, we're meeting here in the coming days. I think good. I mean, I'm not promising anything or like that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is like a guy we loved. And really, I think what's fun about Izzy and Trey Taylor is like these guys played each other last October. Like they are rivals. They trained together. They played last October against each other. It was over, 1,000 passing yards. It was 55 to 54. And I think everything we saw on tape was matched up to what we saw there at the Elite 11 finals. And we'll get Izzy at the opening finals in 2 weeks there in Oregon. I kind of joked it's going to be like, Izzy versus Trey will be like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, kind of that type of buzz. So,
Hmm.
I certainly think he helped himself. Maybe I think Miami fans at home might be wondering, night one, I think Israel was 11 in the official rankings for the Elite 11. I don't know where he ended up finishing. I think he got up to 6, and then they just kind of announced, hey, this is our
Hmm.
final 11. But he came into the event for those guys like he was way down the board, and really that was fueled by him at that regional there in Indianapolis. Like, he did some wow things, but it wasn't the most consistent. So I think he picked up a lot of fans when it came to the quarterback trainers and the quarterback evaluators there as well.
I want to touch on some of the headliners of Miami's class too. And we don't have to go as in depth as we just did on Izzy, but want to get your thoughts. Let's start with 5-star corner Dante Wright. I mean, as you know, right, you covered Miami recruiting closely. Corner was always kind of that position that eluded Miami. Like you go and look at, and look, recruiting rankings matter, but it doesn't always lead to like success or not, right? But generally speaking, the probabilities do sway one way or the other. And you look at like even since like, 2008, Miami really hadn't landed that many top 100 corners, and Dante, like from a rankings perspective, is the best one. If he signs with Miami, he's going to be the best one Miami signed in 20 years or so. So, what do you like about Dante Wright? What type of player do you feel like Miami's getting here?
Height, weight, speed, potential corner one. Loved him on tape as a junior. Got a chance to see him at that Battle Miami tournament, which was like right before the national title game. I know you guys weren't out there, and I couldn't take my eyes off him. And I have a similar grade on him as like Ellis Robinson, Xavier Brown. So some of those guys that
Hmm.
are did it relatively early. And then at his opening regional there. I think that was like in March. I only saw the tape, but I sent it to a ton of people. I mean, he just swallowed up guys. I mean, he's over 6 feet. He can obviously roll. Just the long arms, knows how to play the football, and he's at a storied Long Beach Poly program. And what I think is just kind of unique and why I mentioned that is like, dude, Miami's just going to all different corners
Hmm.
of the country. And like having just spent some time in LA, that recruiting ground is very interesting to me because obviously USC just signed the number one class last year. You have Oregon that continues to go down there. UCLA's got some new life. Washington's in there. And I was actually talking with some people there at USC and UCLA, and Miami's emerge as a thorn. And I think that speaks to what they were able to do this past season and what Mario has been able to build.
Yeah, I mean, we're just seeing Dante Wright again on his official visit this weekend. I mean, this kid just looks like, I mean, he looks to me like I said it. That was like my knee-jerk reaction when I saw him for the first time in the spring. Like this kid has an NFL looking frame. Like just I
Gabby,
haven't seen a cornerback like that.
do you remember like when you first started off? I think we were at a game at American Heritage
Yeah,
and Pat Surtain walked by and you're like, "Who's that?" And I
yeah,
said, "I'm like, that's Pat Surtain."
yeah,
He looks like a defensive end, but no, that's
yeah.
the cornerback. I mean, I'm not saying Dante Wright is Pat Surtain, but like
But he's long like that. Like he is
has
like
that
big, where
physical
it's like,
presence. Yeah.
yeah, he definitely does. I mean, it's really impressive just watching him and just I don't know. Like I feel like when it comes to look just like big time cornerback play, it reminds me of just like those types of guys that are playing at these big time programs that end up getting drafted super high. Like to me, I'm looking at Dante Wright and I'm just like, you get this kid still hasn't even entered his senior season. He's going to get bigger. He's going to get faster. He's going to enter a college strength and conditioning program. And Miami hasn't been shy about throwing these young kids into the fire. Miami has 4 draft eligible cornerbacks on its roster between Xavier Lucas, OJ Frederique, Ethan O'Connor, Damari Brown. Like Dante Wright could very well step into a situation at Miami where they're just like, hey, just go. Like we're just gonna let you. We're just gonna. It's gonna kind of a sink or swim moment for him, and I think he's a guy who could definitely step in and potentially contribute early.
All right, I want to touch on Nick Lanier now. And, he's a guy we saw this past weekend, right? He was at Miami's 7-on-7 competition camp, right? And, man, Andrew, the guy he just reminds me so much of is Amari Cooper. Like, to me, it's almost like perfect, like for like the body type, the way that they create separation. Honestly, like Nick might be a little better at like attacking the ball in the air than Amari was, but their speed is similar too, their movements. To me, like, Amari was elite from a mentality standpoint, and that's to be determined with every high school recruit, right? So I'm not saying Nick Lanier is going to turn into Amari Cooper, but just the raw clay is impressive to me with what Miami has with Nick.
First off, I love that comp. I think I heard it on on the podcast a while back. I want to steal it. You might see that on
Do
the
it.
profile
Yeah.
come the end of the cycle. This guy's like 6 points off the bus, and
Yeah.
I go to the Navy All-American Bowl. So he was an underclassman, and it's one of these ones where you kind of stand on the table to get the kid there. And then he comes through check-in and it's like he doesn't measure the biggest. And you got
Hmm.
people looking at you like, really? Like this is the guy that you wanted here. And then that joint practice. So I think that is like the battlegrounds at the Navy All-American Bowl. They bring the East and the West together inside the dome. And I think the stars shine. I mean, like Jeremiah Smith took it over. And then Nick Lanier, sure enough, one-on-ones. I mean, he is cooking these blue chip defensive backs. Some of them, are older than him. So I agree. He's just a big play waiting to happen. And what's crazy about Nick Lanier is I think you could flip him over to defense and like
Hmm.
he's a power four guy right there. So I think he's got that competitive edge. And I think for Miami, no reason to think they will not find ways to get him involved relatively early. And I think he fits, we'll see what the future holds for Miami, but I think he fits what Shannon Dawson wants to do in terms of pushing that tempo. And, the other thing with Nick Lanier is I don't know if it's like the strongest cycle or the deepest cycle in South Florida. And, Miami has certainly got the one guy that I think consensus wise, you talk to anyone around there, like, hey, he is the difference maker.
Yeah, I want to push it over to the line of scrimmage. We know Miami's the line of scrimmage organization. Jatori Williams, they dip into the Yellow Hammer State and get the big guy out of Phoenix City Central there. It's a program that's produced a ton of talent over the years. I think it's Tamarian Parker that went there too, right? TJ Parker that played there. Just talk to me about what's Miami getting in Jatori.
Yeah, I think when you it's three offensive line commits. Am I wrong here? It's Sean
Yeah,
Tatum. They also got Tyler Ford
Tyler
out.
Ford. Yep.
I mean, these are just like Mario Cristobal, Alex Mirabal offensive linemen. I mean, they are big, they are heavy, they are built to move people at the point of attack. Obviously, Jatori is the highest ranked of the bunch for us. I haven't had a chance to see him in person yet. Hopefully, that happens, whether it be at the Alabama Mississippi All-Star game. But I mean, this guy is athletic for someone that's over 330 pounds. I don't know if he's going to be okay year one, but I think in Miami's program, uh, give him some time to get the body right. I mean, I could see him excelling. Like, I mean, you look at what they did with Inez Cooper, who was also from Alabama. To me, George Torrey Williams, huge win for them. Sean Tatum, I thought that was a savvy get there, uh, up on the Treasure Coast. I think he's an interior guy all of the way, but same
Yeah.
thing, right? He's meant to smash it there up front. And then, Tyler Ford is kind of like this downhill tackle, right? I think
Hmm.
he's got some, he's more of a developmental take. But again, you look at Miami's track record,
Physical.
what
Yeah.
they've got out of some of these guys. Like, you want them to be physical. And, and,
Yeah.
and Tyler Ford, Sean Tatum, to Torrey Williams, they all check off those boxes.
Yeah. I think what stands out to Miami, like about what I always hear about back with Tyler Ford specifically, is just they feel like he's like the perfect fit for their like vertical run game. Like
Yes.
they think he's just going to be he's a finisher. He's nasty. He's kind of like that bully mentality. And I think with all these guys, and I think we're seeing it a little bit with Jackson Cantwell now, right? It's like Jackson Cantwell, and we're talking about it on Sunday at camp. Like they feel like in the run game, Jackson Cantwell is going to absolutely maul people year one. Like out the gate. With the pass pro, I think they understand that that's more developmental and that's going to take more time. But they want guys that are going to be that aggressive. Those guys that they know can just push and they're willing to work with the rest of those guys. So I think all three of those linemen are
Well,
really good fits for what they want to do.
and I mean, you guys would know this better than me, but hey, if the goal is to make the college football playoff, well, guess what? Like, you're going to have to face a Texas A&M front at some point, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have to be physical. So that's what jumps out to me, and specifically with Tyler Ford, again, just talking with some like general managers, personnel people, decision makers. I don't think this is a great offensive tackle class. Like, I
Hmm.
think at the top, I think there's not a lot of sure things, and I don't think there's a lot of depth. So when Miami, kind of pushed all the chips in and got Tyler Ford, that's going to look really smart, down the line, just because I think if he were still available, number one, that price tag could be a lot more, and there's going to be a lot more teams that maybe pivoted to him as they kind of work their way down the board.
Yeah,
All right. And
really quick. Oh, sorry, Dave. I want to jump in really quick because I do want to highlight one more guy, and that's AJ Randall. 6'3", 210, 300-meter hurdle, state champ. He told me he's going to run the 400-meter hurdle at Miami, so he's going to be a dual sport guy. Like I saw this guy on Sunday after his official visit for the first time. I mean, this kid looks like I think he just turned 17 years old. I mean, this kid looks like he's going to be a physical specimen in a few years. I know you really like AJ Randall. Can you talk about what Miami's getting in this kid?
Yeah, and I think after his commitment, I was on that broadcast, and like, I don't know if you see it this way, but Chase Smith, who's he's still at Miami, like,
Yeah, he
this
is.
guy to me is like a more athletic version of Chase Smith that is much further along. And yeah, you bring up the track and field stuff. I think he's the fastest linebacker in the country. He reminds me a lot of Chris Cole at Georgia, and I know that's probably not the most familiar name, but like the Georgia faithful believe a lot in Chris Cole. And I think he's a guy where it might take some time for him to pick it up in terms of the vision and what he's able to do. But you said it. I mean, he's long, he is fast. I think he's going to offer the ability to get after the quarterback on third down. And, I would be confident that Corey Heatherman or whoever is calling defensive plays there is going to put him in the right position. But no, he's a personal favorite for me in this class. We'll see how like those linebackers shake out. But the more we have learned about him, the more we've seen from him, like the more you just get more and more convicted in what AJ Randall could be at some point down the line.
Andrew, I wanna get your thoughts on maybe the 3-star level, and we don't have to go through every guy. Miami has, 5 3 stars committed, and look, 3-star players are still good players and can be important contributors to any football program. But I just want to get your thoughts, like which one of these guys maybe intrigues you from like an upside or developmental perspective. You already touched on Tyler Ford. There's also Javon Dawson, Sherrod Gordine, DeMarco Jenkins, and Josh Johnson out of Key West. Any of those guys kind of intrigue you?
Yeah, it's definitely Javon Dawson out of Santa Lucia. And I believe he's going to be at the opening finals. I kind of recommended him as a linebacker. I don't know what Miami's are they considering him an edge or is it
Yeah.
linebacker? Okay. I mean I see more edge, but
Yeah,
someone I
me too.
trust, someone
I
I trust,
saw him on Sunday, and I
someone,
think he's more of an edge.
Yeah.
yeah,
He
someone I
camped
trust
he camped with him on Sunday.
was like Mike linebacker, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, I can see it. I just think he's more of a natural pass rusher at this stage. I mean, he is super young. He is
Hmm.
very, very young. I think it plays fast, physicality. I mean, it's all there. I could see him hitting big. I mean, Sherrod Gordine, not the tallest individual. He reminds me of Trajan Bandy. Like, I
Yeah,
think
same.
coverage feel like this is a kid that has been in press man since he was 8 years old. And I think that shows up on the tape. Now, he might not be the fastest, he might not be the quickest, but dude, he makes plays, right? Like he
Hmm.
gets to the catch point, he jars it free. The one that like is really interesting to me is the guy that happens to be the I think the lowest ranked commit at right now, Josh Johnson. Now, two-way lineman out of the Conch Republic. Really like what we saw. That being said, injured,
Right.
the knee injury. So, we're kind of waiting to see what does it look like as a senior. But I think for, Jason Taylor, whoever gets their hands on him, I mean, there's a reason why the Big Ten, well,
Yeah.
maybe the coaches went on vacation there, but there was a reason why the schools went down on him. So, yeah, he's like one I personally have circled. Okay, like what does it look like, through that first 3, 4, 5 games as a senior?
I want to get your thoughts too, Andrew, on, you cover Miami recruiting daily, right? And Mario Cristobal's approach, you've touched on it a little bit, but Mario Cristobal's approach has been going national. And I'm curious, just like, are you surprised that Miami's able to pull that off? Are you surprised Miami's willing to pull that off? I know, one of the sayings kind of back when you were covering recruiting was like, yeah, we can love South Florida, but South Florida also has to love us back. And that can be a difficult dance, right? And I think Mario's approach is like, yeah, we're always going to prioritize South Florida, but we're not going to prioritize it so much that we screw ourselves and have to settle for someone who doesn't belong here. What do you think about just the way that they're able to execute this approach?
Well, I think so much has changed just in general in terms of like the name, image, and likeness, revenue share. Even the spring and the summer visits, how accelerated everything has gotten, where it just feels like regional recruiting has kind of drifted away. And it's not just at Miami. I just think you look around the country and that's kind of the case. And is that a byproduct of all this conference realignment? Maybe. I think that plays a part of it. I think it's also where we are as a society. I mean, you can watch any game on television. I mean, you can follow any program from a social media perspective. So, when I look at Miami's class, number three right now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is a chance it could be the highest in the 24/7 sports era
Hmm.
if they get some more of these guys. So what jumps out to me is number one, parlaying what happened this past season, that college football playoff run, the fact that Malachi Tony is on the EA Sports video game. Everyone knows who he is. Like they are using that momentum, and I think for Miami, they now have the ability to have a seat at any table. And I think what's unique about Miami is they can now be selective and they can find the individuals that fit Mario in Miami's culture. I mean, it is a smash mouth competitive program. Like that's how I would describe it. And really, it starts in at the point of attack and in the trenches. I mean, it has been a while since Miami has taken a big body where it's like I don't know if this really fits in there. Like they certainly are getting who they want, and it might not always be the highest ranked guy, but they are getting they're having these conversations. They're getting these guys on campus where they can be selective. The other thing is, and I don't want this taken the wrong way, but I do think it's a little down right now in South Florida, maybe compared to
I agree.
some previous cycles, some previous years. So, I think they're doing a good job of navigating the ones where it makes sense and it's a fit. And then they're going out and they're trying to get the best of the best around the country. I mean, what they've been able to do in Chicago, I mean, if this was the video game, like, would they not have like a little
Yeah.
pipeline there in Chicago?
Definitely.
They would have
Definitely.
a pipeline. I think of the Carolinas, that seems to be kind of booming a
Yeah.
little bit. So Alabama,
Southern California, yeah. I mean, like
yeah.
Hayden Lowe, Dante Wright, like they're doing something in Southern California too.
No, I just think the strategy makes sense. And I don't know, David, like I always go back to when I was, I guess, on the beat. Um, it always felt like Alabama and Georgia would just come in to Florida and get who they wanted. And I know last cycle Miami got Jackson Cantwell. They didn't go on Kenye Pepe. But, it wasn't too long ago where Nick Saban would just get whatever the top offensive lineman
Hmm.
was at IMG Academy. That like no longer feels like the case to
Yep.
me. Now it feels like, hey, Miami is going to be in it with any of these five-star offensive linemen wherever they are in the country. Now, are they going to get it across the finish line? Maybe not. I mean, certainly there's a lot of compensation that comes into factors, but they have created an identity where they are going to be there, and I think that that's what again jumps out to me.
I know one thing like last cycle Miami was proud of was their senior evaluations and some of those guys that they landed late in the cycle. Did that catch your attention? Do you feel like that is an area where there's meat on the bone for like programs that value senior evals and can get some good players, in the last couple months?
I thought them and Ohio State were the best in like at the top of the food chain when it came to actually getting into the senior tape and then making moves on guys. So I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It would have been like
JJ. Yep.
JJ
JJ
Dunnigan,
Dunn again.
Gavin Muller.
Gavin
Yep.
Moeller,
Keyshawn Standstill,
Milan
Milan
Paris,
Harris. Yep.
kind of. And like, aren't all those guys some of the best players out there on
Yes.
Green
Yeah.
Street for true
Yep.
freshmen? What's crazy to me, and obviously in my position, it's much easier said than done, is everything has gotten so accelerated. Everyone wants to be, it used to be, all right, we want to be done by July 4th. Now it's, hey, we want to be done before the official visits even start. Like
Yeah.
we're trying to lock guys into contracts and make sure they don't go check out other schools. And you are kind of forgetting about a key developmental phase with each one of these prospects, right?
Yep.
I mean, we're talking again 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 games. And sure, like I think you can try to lean on what based on their junior seasons, but sometimes, you look at some of these kids at St. Thomas Aquinas, they might not play a ton their sophomore and junior year. So I think the fact that Miami has devoted time and resources into, hey, when it comes to September and October, we're going to look for the guys that are playing the best football because usually, like, those are the guys that are stepping in and they're ready to go. And I think there is proof of concept right here, assuming, hey, JJ Dunnigan does get in the mix. Hey, Gavin Mueller does get in the mix. So I think it's really smart and it's surprising to me, some of these schools with the resources they do kind of shy away from that. And it seems like the focus for them is more on, all right, transfer portal, transfer portal, transfer portal, which is fine. At the same time, though, I think the ability to find value in the transfer portal is getting harder and harder just because so many people have figured it out where it isn't what it once was a few years ago.
Yeah, I think one of the big storylines for Miami this cycle is just like they're talking about taking like a small class, right? So last cycle they took 30 guys. This cycle they're aiming, let's say 20, again, maybe it gets pushed up to 22, 23. We'll see how it ultimately goes. I feel like I've read about that with some other schools too, kind of taking a similar approach. Like I'm just curious, like you say you're talking to GMs, is there a rhyme or a reason why schools are kind of doing this? And is it a common theme? Is it because of this class of 2027? Like, I think too, there's a kind of a sense that maybe this isn't like the deepest, strongest class that I don't know if people feel like they need to go all in. Can you just kind of walk us through from your perspective of how that lands with you?
Well, I think number one, everyone is like trying to find the model that's working, and then everyone's going to copy it. So
Yeah.
I think that is what is going to happen. I'm a believer with where we are right now, and certainly things can change. If the 5 for 5 gets approved, I think that throws a wrench in this whole thing. If
Hmm.
they kind of move around signing days, they move around windows. So like, but I'm just saying, as of right now, in this current landscape with the 105, no counter limit, you can kind of basically revamp your roster every year. I think what the smart programs are going to do is you're going to take a big class, you know, invest a ton of resources into it. Like it's going to be a 30-man class, 35-man class, and that is your foundation, right? You are hoping, hey, I'm getting, 15 starters out of this or 15, you know, starter caliber players. And then the next 2 cycles, it's okay, smaller on the high school side, and we are going to go and plug holes in the transfer portal, right? We are going to go get kind of the best of the best. So I think like USC, right, just signed the number one class. It was 35 guys. They're taking a smaller group this year, and I think they'll be in the transfer portal. I think to your point, I mean, I guess I didn't realize Miami had that big of a class last year. I think they're going to do the same thing. And we talk about the NFL-cation of college football. I think this will resonate with a lot of people. It's just like the NFL. You see some organizations, it's like a huge draft, maybe 12, 13, 14 guys. And then the next year, it's only a few picks, but hey, we're in the free agency market. We're trying to shore up where we have some deficiencies on that roster. So it's a balancing act. I think some people are going with that model. And to be honest, I think it makes a ton of sense. Now, when you look at the lower levels, and I noticed this just because we have to like grade all the guys that are on visits and committing to schools. I think the programs like a Wake Forest, man, they are like volume shooting. I think they're going to do, 30 plus players from the high school ranks every year, and they're going to
Hmm.
hope that they can hit on some of those guys that slip through the cracks. And it seems like that's going to be their motto and their mindset. So again, to answer your question, I know I'm dancing all around. I don't think anyone has the answer, but I think that kind of like big class, smaller class with elite dudes, smaller class with elite dudes, big class. I think that's what might win out here.
Andrew, I want to get you out of here on this note. Like you touched on how when you were covering Miami on the daily, Alabama, Georgia, they were a thorn in Miami's side. At that time too, just the big three has also just been down, right? The last decade. I mean, Miami looks like they're maybe poised to have something sustainable. We'll see. Um, I'm curious, just in general, what are your thoughts on the state of recruiting and evaluation from the big three? I mean, obviously, Florida State looks like they're in a tough spot. Looks like John Summerall's kind of getting something going here with his first full class at Florida. How do you view the big three recruiting right now, and just also Miami's place within that?
I think Miami's clear cut the top dog, right? I mean, I was in the swamp, was that 2 years ago, the Cam Ward game? And,
Yeah.
like I thought that was every bit of a statement. I think Miami capitalized on that. I mean, that instantly like pops into my mind when I think
Hmm.
about like the big three in the state. With Florida, I think they're number 5 right now in the recruiting class rankings. I've been impressed with what John Summerall has done. In-state focus. They're in SEC country. The quarterback they have, Davin Davidson, I think he's the top guy in Florida this cycle. Now, I think he's a guy that is going to need some time. Florida State, I think Mike Norvell's in a really difficult position. And I think that is showing up on the recruiting front. A lot of personnel changes behind the scenes. Yeah, I think they're one of these schools that a lot of recruits, a lot of agents are like, hey, we got to see. what this season looks like before. So I think they're fighting that battle. I don't know, David, like it's just interesting to me in terms of, like we bring up Georgia. I think Georgia is trying to kind of figure this whole thing out. I think
Hmm.
Alabama is kind of trying to figure this whole thing out. I mean, last cycle, Georgia signed one five-star. The previous three cycles, they signed 12. Uh,
Hmm.
Alabama, to me, when I like look at the Crimson Tide, it's like, where are the offensive linemen? Now they continue to, make some splash additions here around the country, but so much has just kind of shifted. Clemson. I think they only signed one top 100 recruit last year. And that was the first time in the 24/7 sports era that number was just one. Now they've certainly had a really good few days here to start off the end of May and June. I think they're sitting number 6 in the rankings, but there ain't much meat on the bone out there left for them, right? Like they have
Hmm.
one visit weekend, they got to get those guys in there. So, to me, like the programs that continue to impress on the recruiting front, it's like Texas A&M with Mike Elko, Miami Mario Cristobal. I think Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. Obviously, I mentioned USC, Ohio State. Like I'd put those guys, Oregon as well. Like Dan
Oregon,
Lanning
yeah.
was really like I think that's like the top tier. Then there's another tier below that. But top to bottom, I've just been super impressed with Mario's operation, how they've gone about attacking things. They're aggressive, it seems like at all different times of the year. And so you look at where the class is now, and it's like, well, let's assume they have a ton of success on the field. Darian Mensah is who everyone thought he is. It's like, why wouldn't they go after some more JJ Dunigans and others?
You talk about the the top tier, right? And obviously the to me the number one baseline factor you have to have is resources. What's important after resources that separates? Because a lot of recruiting's kind of just like marginal differences.
Right.
So what is separating those groups beyond the resources? Is it just like the focus, attention to detail with recruiting? Because some coaches say they're all about recruiting, but the proof is in the pudding a lot of times.
Well, I mean, this current era is so unique because, like, yes, the compensation, the NIL, like, that is a huge driving factor, but I still think you have to build relationships with these prospective student athletes. You still have to recruit the families, you still have to work the coaches. And, I think as things have evolved, and again, talking with general managers, decision makers, like, you're trying to find guys that want to be there for the right reasons, right? So everyone is
Hmm.
fighting for those guys with the excellent football character. And you know what? The guys with the football character, they're also making decisions that aren't fueled just by dollar signs, right? They want to see some, okay, what are you going to do for me? And if you look at Miami, it's like, okay, two pass rushers in the first round, at a quarterback go number one overall. I think Miami's ability to get guys to where the real money is, I think that is starting to resonate. I will say this, like Izzy Abrams, when we were at the Indianapolis Regional, I was kind of talking to him about his recruitment. Again, this is like a guy, we had number 14 in the country, and it's like he's going to take a Purdue official visit. So we're like, whoa, like when is someone gonna like swoop in here and make a move? And he mentioned a school, and I was like, really? Like you're looking there? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, that doesn't seem all that stable. And I think it was kind of an eye opener to him. So I guess what I'm saying is like I think there are certain recruits that aren't just fueled by, hey, this is what I'm going to get over the next 3 to 4 years. Like my long-term goal is I want to be here. And they're trying to find those individuals. Like everyone always asks me, hey, like Jeremiah Smith, what made him different? Obviously, he's a physical freak, right?
Hmm.
But Jeremiah Smith was a pro. Like he was a pro off the. I've never met or scouted or been around an individual like that. And obviously, he's a generational talent. But you're trying to find those guys, right? Those guys that are wired the right way. So
Malachi is the same way, honestly.
exactly. And you know what? We missed on Malachi Tony, man. And we were like moving him up in the
In
2024.
hindsight, how much of it was simply the reclassification thing? Because it's hard to bump a guy. I mean, it's becoming more and more normal,
Yeah, and
but
I think I've studied this reclass stuff like more than anyone else, and there's going to be more of it, especially if the 5 for 5 gets approved. If there's one position where the reclassification doesn't seem to impact it more than anywhere else, it is wide receiver. Obviously, Ryan Williams or whatever he's changed his name to. Now he took a step back, but the wide receiver position, we've seen guys, obviously Malachi would be the poster child. I mean, to be honest, like we were like ready to move him into that would have been the 2026 cycle. Like, we were going to move him into the top 247, and we just ran out of time at the buzzer. I mean, we finished hot. I think he was like wide receiver 64. I mean, I beat myself up over it every day. But I think that wide receiver position is the hardest one to stack. They come in all different shapes and sizes. They all got production, and Malachi Tony's like never had measurements on him, never ran a 40, like no multi.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, like we're trying to put our best educated guess out there. And we got that one wrong. And if I could do it again, it's like, okay, elite short area quickness, absolute dog competitor.
Yeah.
I mean, he played quarterback in the state playoffs. Um, so yeah, that's certainly one we wish we could get back. But man, he's special, isn't he?
He is. I'll admit, I did not see him being special like this. Like, I thought he'd be good, but
When
like
you guys are
not.
when you guys are talking about it on the podcast, you're like, yeah, Malachi Tony's going to lead the team in targets. I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good for us.
Yeah, well, we saw him in the scrimmages in fall camp and whatnot, and it was like, yeah, this guy's the best one out here already. So,
Well, we now have like a Malachi Tony rule. We're like at
okay,
the end of the cycle, it's like, okay, who is going to be the Malachi Tony?
right.
Where come September, we're kicking ourselves. So he certainly has served as a lesson for us.
Yeah.
Andrew, you're
I
the
didn't.
man. Go ahead, Gabby.
No, I was going to say, I know people get excited about the rankings updates, but when should the fans expect the next one?
Yeah, well, hopefully here in the next week from when this is taped,
Good.
we are working hard on it. Obviously, and I'll say this, right? You guys mentioned Izzy Abrams, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, they're so reactionary to what they saw. Like, we usually had an update before the Elite 11 finals. They moved the Elite 11 finals earlier this year because the opening finals are back. And for us, it's a lot of validating what we thought, right? Like, we didn't want to move a bunch of guys around, then get them for 3 days and be like, wait, we don't feel this way. So, yeah, it's going to be quarterback focused. And then we'll update again, maybe after the opening finals. I think there's going to be definitely some Miami guys out there. And then we put value in those senior seasons. Like we want to
Hmm.
see who has the arrow pointing up, just like I guess Miami does. So, but we've certainly had a bunch of hits when it comes to trying to find those guys, the guys where the arrow is pointing up.
Thank you for joining us, Andrew. You're the man. We all got smarter after this conversation. So,
For sure.
it's always fun to have you back on, and we'll have to do it again sometime
Yeah,
within the next 6 months.
absolutely, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Take care, man.